Greetings and salutations, fellow humans. Today is the 13th of August, 2025, and I am Thaddeus Satori. Just for a change, I'm going to give this podcast a name. I'm going to call it Where Am I? And How I Got Here. Today, I would like to begin with a story that I can assure you is either true or not. You will have to forgive me if I use terms that are no longer politically correct, but I have lived outside the U.S. for a long time, and I only know the terms I grew up with. So if I offend anyone, it's completely out of my ignorance and not malice. But, as the Buddha said, the finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. Please don't stare at the finger. I begin with this story about an Indian chief called Two Eagles, who lived from the early 1800s into the early 1900s. According to the story, he was being interviewed by a white government representative, and the encounter goes something like this. Two Eagles, you have observed the white man for over 90 years. You have seen his wars and his technological advances. You have seen his progress and the damage he has done. The chief nodded in agreement. The official continued, considering all these events, in your opinion, where has the white man gone wrong? The chief stared at the government official for over a minute, and then calmly replied, when the white man found this land, Indians were running it. No taxes, no debt, plenty of buffalo, plenty of beaver, clean water. Women did all the work. The medicine man was free. The Indian man spent all day hunting and fishing, all night having sex. Then the chief leaned back, smiled, and said, only the white man is dumb enough to think he can improve a system like that. I'm not picking on the white man here, nor praising the Indians. I have been to many countries, lived among lots of different cultures, and have witnessed the same human behaviors, from good to bad, in all of them. They do differ, however, by commonality and by degrees. But ultimately, the monkey is the monkey wherever you go. According to most explanations for this, either scientific or mythological, we come from one common lineage and are, therefore, all related. In fact, we are so close genetically that we can even interbreed across superficial divides. How crazy is that? But what I do think the Native Americans and others got right was their understanding that they were part of the whole, not separate or above, just another strand in the web of life. I feel like we have lost this understanding. When I was growing up in a small town in northern Wisconsin in the 1960s and 70s, life was much simpler. There were just 3 TV stations, rotary telephones connected by landlines, no computer, no internet, and there was still lots of open space to explore, and a lot fewer people. I spent much of my time hunting and fishing, often on my own, walking through the forest, sitting against a tree, rowing a boat or paddling a canoe, listening, observing, being in the moment. I don't dwell on this past, but I do miss it, those simpler times. But change is the only constant. We are where we are, so we have to move forward from here. It's not like we have a time machine to go back, and anyway, those were also very hard times. We just tend to remember the good stuff. I remember visiting my mom in the nursing home some months before she died. I don't remember how we got onto the topic, but she said something like, "You've always been a loner, even when you were a little boy." I was quite amazed to hear that. I didn't know it had started so early. But being a loner did insulate me in my teens, perhaps the toughest years in life. I was weird, so no one picked on me. Not that I would have cared. I had enough craziness in my personal life to not give a damn about what others thought of me. I was lucky that way. I was also both an athlete and a pothead, so I could pretty much party with anyone, but I didn't belong to any one group. And I was too disinterested, naive, and self-absorbed to be aware of all the human things my peers were getting up to at the time. When I was younger, the standard aspirations for most boys my age were to become a policeman, a fireman, or a doctor when they grew up. But not me. My dream was to live in a teepee with an Indian squaw. I suppose that is why I have always continued to go farther and farther afield in my life, looking for a simpler way. I have lived in big cities, of course, Taipei, Hong Kong, Kuwait City, Bangkok, and I have visited many more in many parts of the world. This is how I can be sure that I am not a city person. Too many people, too much concrete, too many vehicles, not enough nature. Now I find myself starting over again, living alone at the edge of a small city in South America, 63 years old and growing closer to death day by day. It's a good thing I'm a loner. I survive on a meager and ever more uncertain Social Security check, and sometimes, frankly, I wonder what the hell I'm doing here. My daughter recently reminded me of the ending of the movie, Don't Look Up. If you haven't seen it, it's about a planet-killing asteroid that is on a collision course with the Earth. It could be diverted, of course, but it isn't because of the greed and arrogance of the business and political leaders, and the blind, almost religious support of their followers. All of them refuse to look up at what is clearly visible. At the end of the movie, when the asteroid is finally closing in, the main characters are sitting around a dinner table, spending their last moments with the people they love and care about. The asteroid was meant to be a metaphor for climate change, but climate change is a lot slower moving and, let's hope, a lot less devastating. Hence my dilemma. Give the movie a watch if you haven't. It's actually extremely funny for such a grim topic, and it shines a bright light on our current situation. I don't care much for prognostication, so I don't like all the talking heads who get rich by telling me what is going to happen. If any of these twats can really see the future, I want one of them to give me the bloody winning lottery numbers. Otherwise, I can see for myself where these paths likely lead. But while no human can know the future, our ability to recognize patterns can often be accurate and useful, at least in general terms over the long run. The patterns in human behavior that I see over the past 10 or 12,000 years does not exactly fill me with hope. We are a selfish lot, and it would appear that many of us will do anything for money and power, which typically leads to a whole lot of death and destruction. We allow our emotions to override rational thought. My daughters cry over people's abuse of animals, but I point out to them that we are just as cruel to each other. If only there were teachers who try to convince us to do otherwise. For most of our time on this planet, we lived in small groups. We knew we could rely on each other. We had to work together just to stay alive. In such small societies, it was easy to get rid of the crazies and the assholes. But ever since we started living in larger groups, it seems like these greedy psychopaths have been in charge. They successfully manipulate the masses using fear, our tendency toward team affiliation, our preference for simple explanations to complex problems, usually pinning the blame on a scapegoat, and our yearning to find certainty in an uncertain universe. They divide us using gods and myths, and convince many to sacrifice their integrity, or even their lives, or to enforce unjust laws, or even commit atrocities. Just watch the news. But we can change things. To borrow a few lines from the head grasshopper in the movie A Bug's Life, quote, "You let one ant stand up to us, then all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life." End quote. Welcome to history. Welcome to the present. We are not separate from the universe or the natural world, and birth and death have always been parts of the circle, be it a star, a person, or an insect. But unlike other creatures on this earth, We humans are able to play a large role in both our successes and failures, at least in the areas over which we have some control. I can't know what the future holds, but it seems obvious, to me anyway, that we are currently on a path that ultimately leads to our own demise. Not too smart. We can change paths, of course, but to do so we will have to work together, locally, nationally, and globally, and we're going to need to use all the tools available. In our communities, we can withdraw our support of the current system of profit over life by refusing to buy into it and becoming more self-sufficient. In democracies, we can slowly change the systems that reward selfishness over generosity, division over unity. With modern technology, we can organize with like-minded people around the world. We're going to need everyone's contribution, as it's not possible for one person to have all the answers. But we can do amazing things when we work together. It's how we deal with the asteroid that will determine our success or failure, maybe. But if we are going to prepare ourselves for these changes already upon us and reduce the resulting suffering, we need to put aside our differences and start working together. It's time for us ants to realize that we outnumber these insane bastards by many more than 100 to 1. That's all I've got for now. Take good care of yourself and those around you. We are going to need to rely on each other, like we used to. So plant a garden and learn how to can. Figure out how to make do with less. Start organizing locally. Anyway, thanks for listening. Cheers.